Hey everyone, welcome to the Get Your Life Together Girl Mini Mindset Reset. I'm your host, Danielle. As a cognitive behavioral therapist, a life coach to women, and author, one thing has become abundantly clear. So much of what gets in our way in our daily lives is not only how we think, but what we think, our mindset. Because of that, every other week, I'm taking your requests and questions and handing over quick, easy to use, practical strategies and life tools to help you shift your thinking, create calm, help you understand and express your emotions, harness your inner power, and learn how to navigate your personal story in 15 minutes or less. After all, how else can you get your life together? So let's shift your perspective with the tools and conversations that help you in the throes of change. The Get Your Life Together Girl podcast mini mindset reset starts right now. Let's face it, the state of the world is less than desirable in so many ways. And yet there's also much movement and change that is also inspiring, empowering, and life-changing. What's happening in the world at large is really an echo of what happens in our individual lives. We see negativity and we focus in, but there is another option. Melanie Lush from Florida wrote in and said, Danielle, I recently found your podcast and listened to an episode where you were talking about thoughts. Now, before I listened to the episode, I thought I only really struggled with the focus part. But now I realize I don't struggle with focus. What I struggle on is focusing on the wrong thing, the thought behind the focus. If something has a bit of drama to it, negativity, or I feel like I don't have a choice in a situation, I will often laser in. I spend most of my days in negative thoughts. So first, I want to thank you for opening my eyes to this because now I know I want to change it. And two, I want to ask, how can I shift my focus to be on something far more positive or better than what I'm currently thinking about or doing? Melanie, what a great question. And honestly, another foundation of everything I teach, because what we focus on grows. The truth is, it's easy to get caught up in negativity, and some people have what is called a negativity bias. What is that? Well, it's a tendency to not only register negative situations, emotions, and feelings easier, but it also has us dwelling on moments for long after they have come to a conclusion. So how does that play out in our everyday lives? If you continually think with a negativity bias, or you are in a space where negativity is the slant of your focus, we really have a hard time with joy, peace, and happiness because the sting of negativity has many more powerful feelings connected to it than joy, peace, and happiness. And the more that negativity is practiced, the more it becomes ingrained. And again, what we focus on grows. How do you know if this is you? Melanie asked, how can I shift my focus? But how do I know if this is how I think? Some telltale signs are that you tend to notice the negative things in almost everything first. And then later, when you're asked to recall the situation, those things are far more vivid and have more of an emotional response for you. That's a really good indication that you are living through this negativity bias. I also have to say that our brains are wired for safety. You hear me say that all the time. And we tend to recall or remember traumatic, difficult, or even annoying experiences far easier and with greater detail and connection than positive experiences. We can recall insults easier than we can recall praise that just happened, right? To drive this point home, let's think about that day that you were really having a wonderful experience. It was a fantastic day, and you had to pop into the store before going home, and you get up to the checkout line, and the cashier is absolutely rude, and it sets you off. And then you are in a space now that doesn't feel very good. So when you arrive home and someone asks you how your day was, what are you likely to say? I'm going to give you a few answers. Well, it was a good day until I stopped at the store. And then the cashier was absolutely rude and she ruined everything. Now, is that the truth? Did this one person in this very short span of time ruin your entire day? Or are you more connected to something that isn't yours to connect with? That person's bad mood really probably isn't about you. And are you using this as your excuse to pick up the trash of negativity and let everything else go away? Probably. So let's quickly touch on how this bias really impacts us and where it comes from. So our tendency to pay more attention to bad things and overlook the good things is likely a result of our evolution. Earlier in our human history, paying attention to bad things like the tiger and negative threats was literally life or death. And we were more attuned to survival. But yet, because this is such an integral part of our DNA, those genes that makes us far more, ready to pay attention to danger simply haven't de-escalated to the point that we don't really realize that we're acting from old programming. Research even shows that this negative bias starts in infants and babies. Young infants tend to pay greater attention to positive facial expressions and tone of voice, and that really begins to shift when they hit 1 year old. They know that they are safe based on how you are responding to them. We even have MRI studies showing that there's a greater response in the brain to negative stimuli, even in young babies, versus a positive stimuli. So when I say that you are wired to look for the negative, my friend, you literally are. There's so much brain science around this conversation too, so much that we really don't have time to break it down. I just want you to say study after study shows that we have greater brain activity when there's a negative experience than we do the positive. And that always leads people to ask, well, then how do we change our negative focus? I want to walk you through 4 things that I often start in private session when I realize that there's a negative focus or a bias. And while these practices seem very simple on the onset, please know that they take an incredible amount of energy and focus. So do them, try it out. But if you feel defeated, it's because it's hard, okay? So the first one that we would really start with, if we were talking about getting a handle on our negative thoughts or our focus, is to take a look at the lens that you see everything through. In order to change our thinking and certainly your focus, you have to be aware of what's going on in your mind. So the first order of business is to get a notebook. Now, this is a notebook that is literally only for this, right? So it's not for your to-do list, your recipes, or notes of any other sorts. This is only for recording your thoughts. And for a set period of time, I really recommend 7 to 10 days. I want you to walk around with this notebook. There's a reason why I'm saying notebook, so hear me for just a second. When we use our devices, our phones, our tablets, we can go into autopilot and we don't remember what we wrote down or what we did or what we saw. So this exercise is all about recall. We have to remember what we wrote down in order to know what's happening in our mind. We want to root out the issues, right? So get to pen and paper. And anytime that you have a negative thought, I want you to write it down. After a few days, you're going to become so hyper aware of what's happening in your mind, but I want you to continue the process of this. Continue to write it down. And when you're ready, you can add to the experience and you can write out what you were doing or thinking before the thought occurred. Basically, in that, we're looking for the trigger. But once you finish the exercise 7 to 10 days later, start to assess what came up the most. What topic did you write most about? Was it your relationship, work, world events? What is it? Start to pinpoint that and break those thoughts into categories: work, relationship, family. And from there, look at the focus of your thoughts. What did you write down? Did you write down that you're unhappy? Did you write down that you don't have enough? What was the focus? I really want you to get into a space where you can look at what is causing, what is driving the focus and the thought process. This is a very helpful tool. You are easily able to then break it down. And while you're doing that, I want you to also look at your negative self-talk. It's very likely that that's going to come up too, because negative self-talk shows up and it tells us how we think about ourselves and others. It's truly best to stop the thoughts before they actually get into our mindset. And so let's show you how to do that too. Now, if we're going to really, shift our thoughts, we have to reframe it into something else. So how you talk about yourself and the events and experiences plays a large role in how you are interpreting things around you and what you focus on. So when you find yourself seeing something in a negative way, I want you to try to stop, pause in the moment, and then look for something else. This is a hard event. It's not easy. We are trying to offer ourselves the flipping of the script. So let's focus again on the store and the stopping with the clerk. If you were to focus on the bad behavior, you would get a negative response. But if you were to focus on the fact that that moment really had nothing to do with you, you could begin to shift it and not connect. You could flip the script and say, sometimes it's hard to stay positive when your day hasn't been great, right? And that pulls that person into the moment and they realize how they are responding to you. You have flipped the situation. Or you're having a bad day and you are finding yourself complaining about not having enough. You would flip it and talk to yourself about what you do have enough of. This is a very beautiful experience. It's something that you must really do and be active in if you want it to be an exercise that works for you. From there, we would work to establish new patterns. And you could do this too, but it does take, again, effort. Whenever you find yourself ruminating on things or looking for what is not great in your life, I want you to find an uplifting activity to pull yourself out of the mindset. So some of those things may be to go to your journal, to go for a walk, listen to upbeat music, read a book. However you need to redirect yourself, do it, but be consistent with it. Patterns are only developed when there is consistency. So pick one thing, stick with it for at least, say, 45 days, and you will begin to see that when you're feeling negative, that you automatically move into something healthier for yourself. You're establishing the new pattern. And in all of this, I want you to begin to shift your focus by making conscious efforts to savor the positive moments. It's easy to get bogged down, but remember, if it is easier for your brain to take in the negative, you're going to have to make more of an effort to lock in the positive. So when something great happens, take a moment to really focus on it. Replay the moment several times in your mind and focus on the wonderful feelings that your brain is invoking. In order to create new patterns, you have to create a new pattern. The brain is naturally great at catching all the negatives, but your brain is also quite good at changing its patterns. If you want to shift your focus, you must actively shift your focus. Melanie, thank you for a great question. I hope it serves you and everyone else that is actively trying to shift into something better. Give it a try. Thank you so much for listening to the Get Your Life Together Girl mini mindset reset. If you have a subject or strategy request, email us at getyourlifetogethergirl@gmail.com. Or you can visit our website at getyourlifetogethergirl.com. If you're looking for daily inspiration or tips and tools, join the growing community at Get Your Life Together Girl on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Thank you for being a valuable member of this community. Until next time, be kind to yourself and others.